Hey guys, tonight we're slipping off our modern sheets and tiptoeing into a world where your wedding wasn't over when the party ended, and the real test came after the sun went down. Welcome to the ancient realm of Kievan Rus, where braided hair and carved icons masked something far more nerve-wracking, the dreaded wedding night. The air smells like wood smoke and fermented honey. You're standing stiffly in embroidered linen, while distant cousins scream singing in Old East Slavic compete with a goat bleating somewhere nearby. You're sweating under your heavy wedding cloak, not from dancing, but from dread. Because, sure, the ceremony was a blur of flowers and bread and loud men slapping each other on the back. But now you know what's coming next, and you're not entirely sure you're ready. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just been officially married. Congratulations. Except you're not done yet. Not by a long shot. You're standing in a small, smoky izba, or log house, your face flushed from the heat and the vodka, or maybe it's just nerves. There's a loaf of bread tucked under your arm, a ceremonial gesture of fertility. Your in-laws are circling you like wolves, all smiles and claps, but the real test is still hours away. In Kievan Rus, weddings were grand affairs. If your family had any status at all, the celebrations would last several days, sometimes as many as 7. The first day was the official ceremony, a whirlwind of blessings, feasts, and festivities. The Vasilia began at sunrise, with processions through the village. You walked beside your new spouse, trying to smile, while children pelted you with seeds for good luck and dogs barked at your trailing cloak. But even in this chaos, you noticed something odd. People kept looking at you. Not the loving, admiring gaze you might expect. No, this was assessing. Measuring. As if you were a sheep being appraised before slaughter. Historians still argue whether this early fixation on the couple's performance came from Slavic pagan traditions or was reinforced by Orthodox Christian doctrines imported from Byzantium. Likely both. Either way, the message was clear: the party was a distraction. The real concern was what happened after the party. You reached the feast. Long wooden tables grown under roasted pork, salted fish, cabbage stews, and endless mugs of medivuka, a honey-based mead that hits harder than it tastes. Guests eat with both hands. People toast in your honor, but their eyes still flick toward the small side chamber where the bed has already been laid with fresh rushes. A bard strums something melancholic on a gusli while you nibble salted cucumbers and try not to look at the bedchamber door. Your new spouse is grinning too much. Maybe they're just drunk. Or maybe they're terrified too. You remember the old woman, your grandmother maybe, pulling you aside earlier that day. Don't forget, she hissed. You must lie still. Let him come to you. But don't let him spill his seed outside, or there'll be no child, and no child means shame. You wanted to ask 100 questions. Instead, you just nodded. So now you're here. Guests laugh loudly as they gather around a clay jug to play some game involving riddles and egg tossing. You smile weakly, but your stomach churns. There's a reason the daylight hours are so full. Dancing, feasting, and endless toasts serve a purpose. They delay the inevitable. Keep everyone, especially the bride and groom, from thinking too hard. But you can feel the slow shift now. The fire crackles lower. The food disappears from plates. Voices drop from joyous to sentimental. This Vashka, a female relative in charge of rituals, approaches with a candle and a knowing smirk. It's time, she says gently, but her eyes gleam. You rise. You've been trained not to resist. Mainstream historical records confirm this was a highly structured rite. In wealthier households, the bride and groom were accompanied to the chamber with symbolic gestures, garlands tossed behind, bread broken over their heads, or a priest muttering a final blessing. But in poorer homes or rural villages, it was rawer, blunter. Sometimes villagers would crowd around the walls to listen. And yes, sometimes they waited for a proof that the act had taken place. You step into the bedchamber. The door closes behind you. It's dark, but not fully. One clay lamp flickers near the corner. The bed is narrow and stuffed with straw. A small loaf and salt rest at the edge, a holdover from pre-Christian fertility rites. You sit. You wait. You breathe too loudly. Your spouse enters, laughing nervously. They stumble a little, maybe from drink, maybe from dread. They murmur something soft, unsure. You nod. Words don't help much. You both know eyes are just beyond the wall. Listening. Waiting. Judging. Outside, someone starts singing a cheeky verse. It's one of those songs old people claim are traditional, but are clearly meant to embarrass the newlyweds. The lyrics suggest all kinds of impossible acrobatics and animal metaphors. You force a smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes. And still, deep in your gut, there's a sliver of fear. What if something goes wrong? What if you disappoint? What if your grandmother's potion worked too well? You lie back. You shut your eyes. You try to forget that tomorrow, the entire village will be talking about this moment. The morning sun still lingers in the air, but the mood has shifted. What once felt like a wedding now feels like a performance. You're back outside, not even sure how much time passed in that tiny room last night. You were told to smile. So you did. You were told to walk out with your head high. So you did. And now, the next phase of the ordeal begins, the public feast. You might think the hardest part is over, but no. This is Kievan Rus, somewhere between the 9th and 13th centuries, and here, the celebration is only just warming up. You're shoved gently but firmly into a noisy courtyard where dozens, maybe hundreds, of people have gathered. A fiddler is balancing on a barrel. Children are slapping each other with long stalks of rye. The baker's youngest daughter is already suspiciously drunk. There's meat roasting on an open spit, filling the air with the rich scent of sizzling fat, and someone's yelling about apples again. Loudly. In the middle of it all stands a long wooden table, and at its head, 2 seats for the bride and groom. You are expected to sit there. To be seen. To be celebrated. To be poked and teased and paraded. The wedding procession is about to begin again, this time not to church, but around the village. With you at the front. You walk. Always walking. This time you're followed by your new relatives carrying loaves of bread, banners of embroidered linen, and, peculiarly, a carved goose on a stick. Historians still argue whether this was meant to symbolize fertility, endurance, or just a practical way to keep bored children busy. The procession stops at every house that donated food, firewood, or ale for the feast. You're expected to bow, give thanks, and smile as people toss barley at your head and offer you pickled eggs you absolutely do not want to eat right now. And just when you think you've completed the route, the fiddler changes tune. Now comes the final stop, the bridal toast. A clay cup is raised. The starosta, the elder of the village or the most respected man at the feast, begins the first toast. His speech includes several things. A wish for many sons, always sons. A joke about how the groom should hold strong like the mighty oak. And a deeply uncomfortable pun about plows, harvests, and furrows that sends your cheeks aflame. You drink because it's polite. Then they refill your cup. You drink again. The meat is sweet and sticky, but it numbs you fast. They hand you bread with salt. A traditional blessing, yes, but also a test. You're supposed to eat the salt first, and the bread second. Get it wrong, and people whisper about bad omens for your marriage. By now, your head is swimming. The heat, the eyes, the never-ending pressure, it's too much. And still, no one lets up. Another cup. Another toast. Another crude joke about your midnight harvest. You glance at your new spouse. Their expression is unreadable. Maybe they're managing better than you. Or maybe they've just learned how to look like they're managing. Either way, you both sit as the villagers sing ancient songs, some beautiful, some baffling. One woman stands and sings of a bride who cried on her wedding night because her husband snored like a bear. Everyone laughs. Another woman counters with a song about a man who fainted when he saw his bride's birthmark and had to be revived with horseradish. More laughter. It's hard not to laugh, too. It's also hard not to cry. And then come the ritual foods. A shallow wooden tray is placed before you. On it, a hen and a rooster, both cooked and decorated with ribbons. A bowl of porridge with a butter cross in the center. A single, whole onion, no one explains why. You are expected to taste everything. Each bite means something: prosperity, fertility, good weather, healthy livestock, obedient children. You eat them all, eyes closed, pretending to savor every bite. One guest tries to feed you with a carved spoon shaped like a bear paw. You accept because resisting would seem rude. He makes a bear noise. You force a smile. Everyone laughs. Quirky tradition? Yes. But also a test. The entire community is watching not just what you do, but how you do it. Do you chew politely? Do you hesitate at the onion? Do you spill any porridge? A smear on your tunic could spark a year of gossip. Historians have noted that in tight-knit villages of Kievan Rus, weddings weren't just about two people. They were about two families, and two reputations, being stitched together in full view of the village. And any loose thread was noticed. Suddenly, there's shouting. The local Scarier, a wandering jester musician, has arrived. He's wearing a ridiculous hat with bells and an actual badger pelt tied to his back. He launches into a mocking song about your family names and exaggerated versions of your wedding night. You can't help but laugh. He's funny, but also terrifyingly accurate. You wonder how much he heard through the door last night. The crowd roars. You feel dizzy again. And then, just when you think you might be allowed to sneak away, someone claps loudly and announces, "It's time to see the dowry!" You freeze. Because now, the display becomes even more public. You don't even make it to your feet before someone grabs your arm, gently, but with that iron grip old women somehow possess, and ushers you across the yard to a newly spread cloth laid out beside the log wall of the house. This is the pozag, the dowry display, and you're the star of the show whether you like it or not. The cloth is embroidered. Of course it is. Your mother and aunts spent weeks, months, even, stitching little red birds and trees of life into every edge, hoping the needlework would distract from what the cloth would soon carry: your dowry. Every spoon, every thread of linen, every copper pot. On display. For everyone. In the full, judgmental sunlight. And the worst part? You don't even know what's inside all the chests yet. One by one, the wooden boxes are opened by a smiling aunt who seems a little too excited to narrate each item aloud. Here we have 6 embroidered towels. From her grandmother, rest her soul. She holds one up like it's a banner at a tournament. Everyone murmurs. You don't know if that's good or bad. Historians still argue whether dowry evaluation in Kievan Rus was mostly symbolic or practically binding. Some evidence suggests that wealthier families would literally negotiate the bride's value in livestock units. Others believe the public dowry show was more about social standing and future fertility. If she brings many linens, she'll surely bear many sons. You're not sure which version you're living through, but neither sounds comforting. Next come the shirts. 10 of them. All white linen. You recognize your own hand in half of them. Those uneven stitches were yours, hurriedly done on chilly mornings. You'd hope no one would notice. They do. A neighbor leans over and says too loudly, "Still learning, are we?" You smile tightly. The final box is opened, and your heart sinks. It's the livestock ledger. No, there are no animals here. But there is a parchment list of what your family has pledged to send to your husband's household. 2 goats, 1 cow, 1/2 share of a barley field, and 1/3 of a broken cartwheel that your uncle swore would be fixed by midsummer. The list is read aloud, twice. You scan the crowd. Some smirk. Some nod thoughtfully. One man whispers something to his wife, who nods with pursed lips and glances at your shoes. They're muddy. Then come the gifts from the groom's side, which technically aren't supposed to be part of the display, but they always are. Your new in-laws bring out a cloak, fine wool, dark green, with bronze clasps. It's meant to symbolize their generosity and your new status. They make sure everyone sees it. And you suddenly understand, this is not just a display of goods. This is an exchange of leverage. Your family is showing how seriously they take your future. His family is showing how well they can absorb you. And both sides are watching each other, not you. It's all politics wrapped in linen. Quirky tidbit time. In some regions of early Rus, there was a strange belief that the bride's dowry could carry emotional energy. If it wasn't blessed correctly, or if an item was stolen from another bride's wedding, it could curse the marriage. So people began sneaking little herbs or charms into the dowry chests. Thyme, garlic, cloves, even tiny bone fragments, hidden between the folds of cloth to ward off envy. You glance sideways. There was a bundle of garlic tied into one of the towels. You thought that was just a kitchen mistake. Maybe not. The sun is higher now. The men are sweating through their tunics. The children have gotten bored and are playing with a dog and a stick in the mud. But the elders, they are alert, watching every movement of every pot, counting the spoons, judging the fold of every curtain. You hear your name again. The old aunt is announcing something about homemade cheesecloth for baby swaddling. You close your eyes and think of the river instead. Suddenly there's movement. A young man, probably your cousin, stumbles forward, holding a small wooden comb. "Forgot this," he says brightly, and everyone laughs. You don't. That comb was your mother's. It wasn't supposed to be part of the dowry. But it's too late now. It's been seen. And what is seen becomes part of the story. Later, maybe weeks, maybe years, someone will bring it up. Remember when she gave away her mother's comb? Such loyalty! Or worse, how careless, giving away such an heirloom just to impress her new mother-in-law. It never ends. Your new husband sidles up beside you. He smells like onion, sweat, and mead. He whispers, "That cow better be real." You both laugh too hard. It's the only thing keeping you upright. You wish you could go back inside. But there's one more phase of the feast to survive. And it's louder. You're still standing there, sun in your eyes, trying to remember how to breathe without drawing attention, when the next wave of wedding rituals comes barreling toward you, like a runaway ox cart full of onions and opinions. It begins innocently enough. An elderly priest appears beside the table of dowry goods, making the sign of the cross and murmuring something you can't quite hear over the wind and the giggles of a child trying to stick a feather into a pie. He's there for the blessing, of course, the official spiritual sealing of the union. But he's not alone. Trailing behind him are 3 women. You know them. Everyone knows them. They're the whisperers. The babki who remember everything that happened in every wedding in the past 40 years, down to who cried too loud and whose brother drank too much and fell in the river. They step forward with woven towels in hand, mumbling prayers and something that sounds suspiciously like spells. And here's the thing, in Kievan Rus, weddings weren't just Christian affairs. Not entirely. While the Orthodox Church had become powerful, thanks to that whole baptism of Rus in the year 988 moment, folk traditions never quite faded. They simply wove themselves into the new faith like ivy on a cathedral wall. So yes, the priest reads from his book. But right behind him, one of the Babki quietly mutters something about NAV spirits, the souls of the unquiet dead, and how they like to sneak into wedding bread and hide in hair braids. You feel a cold breeze, even though the air is still. Historians still debate how much of these old customs were sincerely believed and how much were just cultural theater. But when an old woman starts tying red thread around your wrist, you don't argue. You let her. Because whatever's coming tonight, you want every bit of help you can get. The Babki take turns waving herbs over your head, wormwood, mugwort, and garlic stems. You flinch when one of them suddenly spits over your shoulder. To ward off envy, she says calmly, as if spitting is just part of polite conversation. You are now thoroughly seasoned, like a roast. Then come the chants. At first, it sounds like humming. Then it becomes a melody, a slow, looping tune with no clear beginning or end. It's not beautiful, exactly. It's haunting. It wraps around your bones. You realize it's a lullaby, but the kind meant to lull spirits back into the earth, not babies into dreams. You sit down slowly, as instructed. A towel is placed over your lap. Someone hands you a single egg. You are to hold it gently, not drop it, not crack it. This, apparently, determines whether your future children will be strong or weak. A boy nearby coughs. A dog barks. Somewhere, someone knocks over a mug. But you don't move. Because everyone is staring at that egg like it's the key to all existence. Finally, the priest clears his throat. The crowd quiets. He lifts a cup, more mead, always more mead, and begins the final blessing before nightfall. His voice is slow and rhythmic, almost sleepy, like a bedtime story with stakes. He prays for union, for peace between families, for fertility, for obedience. Yes, that word comes up more than once. You're not surprised. Then, just as the prayer ends, a grandmother sneaks forward with a sharp look in her eye and rubs a small piece of salted lard across your forehead. For luck, she whispers. And to keep away the hungry ghosts. You resist the urge to lick your lips. They taste like bacon. A quirky historical tidbit: in some villages along the Dnipro River, brides would be anointed with honey behind the ears to attract sweet fortune, while a pinch of ash was dusted into their shoes to remind them where they came from. No one ever explained how those things worked together, but everyone agreed they were necessary. The shadows begin to stretch. The light changes color, brassy and low. People start to sing again, this time slower, more serious. The drinking doesn't stop, but the mood shifts from gleeful chaos to reverent anticipation. It's like everyone senses that the real show is approaching. You, of course, are the main act. Another relative approaches. She offers you a bundle of dried herbs, lavender, thyme, juniper, and urges you to hide it under the bed tonight. It will protect your womb, she says matter-of-factly, like she's recommending a good blanket for winter. You accept it. You're collecting superstitions like souvenirs now. Someone else hands you a string of blessed beads, bone-white, smooth, faintly cold. You slip them into your pocket without question. You're not entirely sure what you believe anymore. Then comes a moment you've been dreading all day, the washing ritual. You and your new spouse are led to a wooden bench where a basin of cold water has been set. Each of you is to wash the other's hands, face, and feet. In theory, it symbolizes humility and care. In practice, it's incredibly awkward. Your fingers tremble as you dip the cloth into the water. You lift it to your spouse's cheek, and suddenly you're both laughing, quietly, nervously, as if breaking a spell. The cold water snaps you both back to earth. It's a moment. Small. You fumble for something to say. Your spouse beats you to it. Do you think they're listening? They whisper. You both burst into quiet laughter. Not because it's funny, but because it's all too much. You laugh so you won't cry. You both know the truth. Yes, they are absolutely listening. In fact, in some parts of Rus, it was traditional for witnesses to remain outside the chamber door, pretending to be busy while secretly listening for any signs that the marriage had been physically completed. In extreme cases, someone might even demand proof, either in the form of stained linen or a loud enough grunt. Historians still argue whether this custom was widespread or just regional horror stories passed around to frighten brides. But in your village, the linen sheet has already been laid, and someone will check it by morning. So here you are, in this sacred space, if you can call it that, with old fears pressing in like fog. You reach under the bed and slip the herb bundle into a small crevice in the floor. It's meant to ward off evil spirits who might interfere with fertility. Or maybe it's just something to do with your hands. You don't know. The oil lamp flickers. Shadows crawl up the wooden walls. You imagine the domovoi, the household spirit, sitting quietly in the rafters, watching with interest. Maybe even judging. You're not sure if that helps. You try to speak again. Your voice cracks. Do you think we'll be okay? Your spouse looks at you. And for a second, their cocky smile from earlier slips. They nod, serious now. Yes. If we survive this, we can survive anything. The moment softens. You move toward the bed. It's awkward. Always is. Especially when the bed is too narrow and your clothes are layered like a cursed puzzle box. The outer garments come off first, wool cloaks, aprons, over tunics. Then the belts. Always the belts. A quirky historical tidbit. In many wedding traditions across early Slavic cultures, the untying of the belt was deeply symbolic. It wasn't just practical. It represented the opening of one's fate, the loosening of maidenhood, the binding of two life threads into one. Which sounds poetic, until you're trying to wrangle 3 knotted cords by candlelight while sweating through homespun linen. Your spouse fumbles. You fumble. You laugh again, this time softer. You finally sit together beneath the sheet. And wait. Because now comes the strangest part of all, the listening silence. The entire village has gone quiet. You can feel them beyond the door. Pretending not to listen. Pretending not to care. Holding their breath. Waiting. You whisper. This is so weird. Your spouse nods. Unbearably weird. And yet here you are. What happens next belongs only to you. Or at least it should. But you both know by morning, everyone else will have their own version of it anyway. You wake up to the sound of chickens. Not poetic morning birdsong or a gentle breeze stirring the curtains, just loud, unapologetic chickens pecking near the window and reminding you that in Kievan Rus, even the most life-altering nights end with livestock yelling about breakfast. The room smells like wax, pine needles, and a trace of anxiety. You blink against the thin rays of light sneaking into the gaps in the wooden walls. Your spouse is still asleep, or pretending to be. You're not sure. You lie still, unsure whether to get up, roll over, or vanish into a crack in the floorboards. Because now comes the next trial, the witnesses. You barely have time to sit up before there's a knock on the door. Not a polite tap. No, this is a ceremonial pounding, the kind that says good morning, we are here to judge you. The door creaks open. 3 women enter, older, loud, experienced. They are here not for small talk, not to bring tea, but to inspect the sheet. You do not protest. You do not blink. You just move out of the way, as you've been trained to do. One of them lifts the sheet. The other 2 lean in. There is silence. Then a satisfied grunt. And just like that, your marriage is officially confirmed. Or at least, the village believes it is. Historians still debate whether the infamous bloody sheet ritual was universally practiced across Rus, or if it was a localized blend of pagan fertility customs and Byzantine-inspired honor culture. Either way, its symbolic power was enormous. No blood? Whispers. Too much blood. Suspicion. Right amount of blood. Applause. You're not sure what the exact score was this morning, but based on the grins spreading across the women's faces, you seem to have passed. You're handed a cup of warm water and honey, which is either a reward or a test. You drink it anyway. Your spouse finally stirs and accepts theirs too, though they look like they prefer something stronger. The women retreat, leaving the door wide open, because privacy is officially over now. And so begins the parade. You're given new clothes to wear, clean, embroidered, and very much designed to scream success. You step outside to a chorus of cheers, clapping, and a man banging two pots together in celebration. You try to smile, but it feels strange on your face. Villagers line up to offer gifts or jokes or both. One man gives you a single egg and says, "For your first child, may they be hard-shelled and impossible to crack." You don't know what that means, but you thank him anyway. Another woman offers a belt embroidered with red horses. "Wear this and you'll have sons." That's the third time someone has said that. Apparently daughters don't count today. You glance at your spouse. They're being handed a carved spoon. Someone says something about feeding the fire of your household. More metaphors. Always more metaphors. Then comes the sheet parade. Yes. They are actually parading the linen. Two women hold it between them like a battle flag. A third woman, a loud one you only vaguely recognize, narrates the moment in great detail. She wasn't there. That doesn't stop her. She spins a tale of bravery, passion, and ancestral approval that involves birds flying overhead and a sign from the moon. It's mostly nonsense. Everyone eats it up. You, meanwhile, want to fall into the ground and become a rock. A quirky tidbit: in some parts of Kievan Rus, the bridal sheet would be washed and repurposed into baby swaddles, church linens, or even burial shrouds. A symbol of life's full circle. Romantic? Maybe. Weirdly practical? Absolutely. As the crowd disperses, you're finally given a moment to breathe. You and your spouse are led to a bench under a birch tree where breakfast is served, a plate of cold kasha, pickled mushrooms, and two herrings staring blankly at the sky. You eat it all without thinking. The babki return, this time with questions. How was the night? Did you dream? Were there signs? Did the lamp stay lit? Was anything strange? You want to lie. You want to say it was magical, that the spirits blessed you, that your ancestors appeared in the rafters singing lullabies. But your mouth is full of herring and your brain is full of static. You just nod. They seem pleased. A priest arrives, says a brief prayer, and hands you each a small icon. "Keep this above your bed," he murmurs. "It will protect you from everything." He doesn't specify what everything is. You assume it includes more uninvited inspections. And then, as if this day hasn't already been the most surreal experience of your life, someone suggests a reenactment. Yes. A theatrical retelling of last night's events. You both laugh. They are not joking. A group of young men gather makeshift props, blankets, a stool, a broom, and begin to act out your supposed wedding night in front of the crowd, complete with exaggerated groaning and dramatic fainting. One man pretends to be the priest, one plays the bed, and another puts a scarf on his head and mimics your posture. You want to die. But everyone is laughing. Including your parents. Including your new in-laws. Including you. Because what else can you do? Historians call this part of the ritual transitional mockery, the community's way of absorbing the tension, reclaiming control, and symbolically folding you back into the village as a newly minted adult. It's part celebration, part hazing, part therapy. And yes, it's awful. But also, strangely comforting. Because for the first time, you're not the only one pretending. Everyone is pretending. Pretending this is normal. That this makes sense. That you are safe, now. Married. Settled. Anchored to the community. You cling to that thought like a raft. Because the day isn't over yet. And neither are the rituals. If you thought getting through the night, and the morning after, was the finish line, think again. In Kievan Rus, the wedding wasn't a single event. It was an entire season of scrutiny, and the next act is already gathering steam, the ritual of dressing, undressing, and redressing the bride. Repeatedly. Publicly. With symbolism so thick you could spread it on rye bread. It starts innocently. You're led back inside the izba, surrounded by women again, always women. They bustle around you, chattering like sparrows, pulling open chests, shaking out fabrics, and arguing over which belt to use. You're stripped down to your shift, and for a moment you feel like a loaf of bread being prepared for market. The underdress is linen, soft from years of washing. Over it goes a crimson sarafan, its color meant to ward off evil and signal your transition. Then comes the belt, red and black threads woven tight. And finally, the headdress. You brace yourself. This is not the same floral crown you wore yesterday. No, the venice of a maiden is gone. In its place, the paviazka, a married woman's head wrap, stiff, tied, and strategically designed to say, "Yes, I am now spoken for and probably quite fertile, thank you very much." A neighbor adjusts the knot with military precision. "You're someone's wife now," she says, tugging. "No more foolishness." You're not even sure what kind of foolishness she means, but you nod anyway. And then the door opens, and you're ushered back outside for the reveal. The crowd claps. Children yawn. One man shouts something about how radiant you look. Your spouse stands nearby, now dressed in a tunic with new embroidery, symbolizing strength, prosperity, and probably future plumbing issues. And then comes the clothing joke. Because no Kievan Rus wedding would be complete without at least one joke about belts. Someone points out that your new belt is too tight, that your husband must have tied it. Everyone laughs. Someone else jokes that the real belt is the one you can't take off anymore, your in-laws. Ba-dum tss. You smile politely, while trying not to collapse from the weight of symbolic textiles and social pressure. Then come the games. Yes, games. But these are not fun, carefree lawn games. These are ritualized tests of character in the form of ridiculous activities. First up, the veil tug. You and your spouse stand back to back, holding opposite ends of your wedding veil. On the count of 3 you both pull. Whoever wins is destined to lead the household. Of course, everyone expects the groom to win. But when you yank just a bit harder and the veil snaps your way, the crowd gasps. Someone coughs. Your spouse stares at you. You shrug. "Must be a sign," you say sweetly. They laugh. It diffuses the moment. Next is the bucket test. 2 buckets of water are brought out. You're each told to carry them around the house without spilling a drop. Why? Because a good wife keeps order, and a good husband provides balance. Or maybe it's just funny to watch exhausted newlyweds stumble with cold water sloshing down their legs. You both fail gloriously. Water spills everywhere. The chickens rejoice. Still, the elders nod approvingly. They're learning together, someone says. That's apparently the best-case scenario. Historians note that these symbolic games, though often dismissed as rustic nonsense, served a deeper function, to publicly demonstrate the couple's ability to cooperate under pressure, to laugh in hardship, and to navigate expectations together. Marriage was never just private. It was always a performance. The sun climbs higher. You're sweating again. The ceremonial garments are heavy, scratchy, and smell faintly of elderberries and anxiety. Then someone hands you a broom. "Time to sweep the hearth," says an aunt. "Let's see how well you clean up your new life." You raise an eyebrow but do as told. You sweep 3 times across the doorway. Then pause. What if I don't want to sweep anymore? You joke. Too late, says someone from the crowd. You're already sweeping for 2. Groans. Applause. Laughter. You glance at your spouse. They give you a dramatic bow. I'll fetch the mop, they say. It's a moment of levity. You clutch it. Then comes the final ritual of the garments. One last time, you're led back inside and changed again, this time into your first household robe. Not festive. Not embroidered. Plain. Woolen. Functional. This robe says you're no longer the bride. You are now the wife, the homemaker, the keeper of keys and cauldrons. Your name will now be used only in plural. Your free time? Compressed to the length of a prayer. Your mornings? Shared with geese and doe and relatives who drop by for 12-hour visits. You catch your reflection in a bronze dish. You don't recognize the woman staring back. And maybe that's the point. A quirky historical tidbit. Some households in Kievan Rus would bury the bride's old tunic after the wedding, as if laying her girlhood to rest. Others would hang it in the rafters as a reminder of who she used to be. Either way, a part of her was gone. You step back outside. The crowd is thinning. The sun is hot. You are tired. But you are also still here. And still yourself. Mostly. For now. The music changes. You feel it before you hear it, a slower rhythm, heavier drumbeats, minor chords strummed on a gustly that make the laughter around you pause just slightly. Because now come the songs. The real ones. The ones that sting more than soothe. You and your spouse are seated on a low wooden bench outside the izba, legs nearly touching, faces pink from sun and attention. Around you, the guests have settled into small groups, mugs in hand, cheeks flushed from food and fermented honey. The feast continues, yes, but now it's laced with a different flavor. Someone clears their throat. An older woman, with a voice like bark and eyes like wet stone, begins to sing. The melody is slow, deliberate, and ancient. No instruments accompany her, just the unsteady rhythm of her foot tapping against a log. She sings of a young bride, pale and silent, who cried the entire wedding night, and was later carried back to her mother's house wrapped in her dowry shawl. No one dares to interrupt. The silence wraps around you like fog. Your throat tightens. You're not sure if you should be flattered or alarmed. Then, as if on cue, a group of men respond with a rowdy, mocking verse about a groom who fell asleep before his bride had even taken off her shoes. The room, or rather the yard, bursts into laughter. The tension breaks. People clap. But not for long. Because that's the way it goes in Kievan Rus wedding feasts. A back and forth, a volley of public songs that balance praise with provocation, comfort with cruelty. The next song begins. It's about you again. Not by name, of course, but clearly inspired by last night's events, or at least what the crowd imagines happened. The lyrics are full of metaphors: horses that won't be bridled, loaves that fail to rise, chickens that refuse to lay eggs. You get the idea? Everyone does. Historians refer to this as ritual teasing, a structured form of social theater that allowed guests to test the couple's resilience and humility while bonding the community together. But in the moment, it just feels like humiliation set to music. Your spouse leans over and whispers, "If one more person compares me to a limp turnip, I'm moving to Novgorod." You snort laugh into your cup of mead. A little too loud. Someone hears. They raise an eyebrow and belt out a verse about giddy laughter that hides uncertain hands. Oh, now you're the main character again. You try to disappear into the bench. But here's the strange part: the longer it goes on, the easier it becomes to just let it happen. You realize everyone has gone through this. Your parents. Their parents. The girl who got married last month and fainted during the 4th song. It's like one long, embarrassing initiation into adulthood, wrapped in a folk song. A quirky tidbit: in certain regions along the Dniester River, wedding feasts were graded not just by the food or wealth on display, but by the cleverness of the verses sung during these teasing sessions. Local bards, or skmoriki, would compete in song duels, using rhymes to roast both families, sometimes inventing new verses on the spot based on who tripped, who spilled soup, or who looked nervous. Basically, early Slavic slam poetry. Eventually, a new voice picks up the tune. It's a young girl this time, barely 12, eyes sharp as hawks. Her verse is simple but pointed. A bride with her belt too tight will sleep like a fish all night. But a bride with a loosened braid wakes with her debts all paid. The crowd gasps. Some chuckle. Your hand goes instinctively to your braid, loosened last night and retied this morning. Coincidence? You doubt it. Your spouse, meanwhile, receives their own round of poetic judgment. A man who drinks before he feeds will plant a field of crooked seeds. The crowd erupts. Your spouse groans and raises their cup in mock surrender. You realize the point isn't just to mock. It's to weave you in. To stitch your story into the village tapestry. To make you memorable. And they are succeeding. Someone passes around a platter of smoked fish and pickled garlic. You eat without tasting. You've been fed all day, and somehow you're still hollow. Just then, a man stands, tall, serious, with a large staff carved in runes. Everyone quiets. This is the keeper of memory, the designated storyteller for the village. He's not a priest or a bard, but something in between. His job is to speak truth wrapped in tradition. And tonight, he's telling the tale of the unlucky bride of Sudislavo, who married during a thunderstorm and bore 7 daughters before her husband was claimed by wolves. Is it a cautionary tale? A blessing? A veiled warning? Unclear. You sit still, listening. The story ends. People sigh. Then cheer. It's over. For now. The musicians pick up again, faster now. Someone pulls you to your feet. You dance. Or rather, you sway. Slowly. A half step behind everyone else. Your head spinning. Your feet sore. Your body still sore from last night. But you move, and the people around you keep moving, and the circle spins, and time passes. Your spouse catches your eye. Smiles. You smile back. For a moment, it's just music. No teasing. No metaphors. No judgment. Just the drums. The beat. The sky turning amber as the sun prepares to fall. But don't relax too soon. Because in Kievan Rus, even the food is watching you. And it's about to get stranger. You're halfway through a boiled turnip when someone taps your shoulder and says, far too cheerfully, "Time to bring out the sheet." You choke. Not on the turnip, on the sentence. Because you were hoping they'd forget. That maybe, just maybe, enough people had passed out or wandered home drunk. That maybe the whole idea of showing proof could be quietly folded away like a spare kerchief. But no. The linen is back. And this time, it's the centerpiece of the ceremony. 2 women, you recognize them from the bridal chamber inspection earlier, emerge from the house with the white sheet held between them like a holy relic. It is, in a way, a very awkward, very contested relic that carries the full weight of family honor, fertility superstition, and public curiosity. The crowd surges forward. Not in a mad rush, more like a slow, reverent creep. Like villagers approaching a sacred relic, or possibly a mildly cursed artifact. There are gasps, whispers, a few skeptical grunts, and then someone claps. Slowly. Followed by cheering. You're not sure if you're supposed to smile. So you do. Weakly. Like someone who's just been told they passed an exam they didn't study for and definitely didn't understand. A neighbor leans in. Well done, she says, as if you'd plowed a difficult field or defeated a bear. You've brought honor. You don't feel very honorable. You feel like you're about to melt into a clay pot. Here's the thing, this sheet, stained or unstained, wasn't just about proving intimacy. It was a deeply symbolic receipt. A signed, sealed, possibly blood-speckled document that validated everything: your marriage, your family's worth, your ability to carry the future. Historians still argue whether this ritual was universally enforced or mostly symbolic. But in rural villages like yours, symbolic and mandatory were basically the same thing. And it wasn't just shown. Oh no. It was paraded. Like a battle flag. Two teenage boys, clearly enjoying themselves, take over the task. They march the linen through the crowd while someone sings a victory song. The lyrics are vague but triumphant. Something about strong horses, fertile fields, and well-fed goats. It's not subtle. Neither is the grin on your father's face. You glance at your spouse. They're trying to blend into a pile of firewood. Then comes the truly surreal part, the framing of the cloth. Yes. They are actually framing it. A carved wooden frame is brought out, previously used for family icons. The sheet is folded, just so, and pinned behind glass, like a rare herbarium specimen. It will hang in your new household, at least for a while, until it's quietly put away or accidentally used as a rag to polish copper. A quirky historical tidbit: in some regions of Rus, the proof sheet was burned after 3 days to prevent witchcraft. In others, it was dipped in river water and then buried under the hearth for luck. Some families even claimed the cloth sang at night if the marriage was truly blessed. You sincerely hope that's just folklore. Now the crowd shifts again. The songs return, but this time, the tone changes. Less teasing. More solemn. More curious. You realize this is the phase where people start asking questions. Did it hurt? Did you cry? Was it true love? You smile tightly. Offer vague answers. Mostly nod. An older man shuffles over and places a warm, slightly sticky hand on your shoulder. Your grandmother would be proud, he says, although you're not convinced he ever met her. You nod anyway. Then, of course, someone starts a new toast. Always another toast. This one is long, elaborate, and involves a metaphor about beekeeping you don't fully understand. Everyone drinks. You drink. You drink again. And now the food returns. But not just any food. This is the ritual feast for the sealed couple. You're given a special plate, carved, oiled wood, decorated with floral patterns. On it, a perfectly arranged serving of the following: a roast quail, sliced in half, symbolizing union. A twisted bread ring for eternity. Pickled apples for sweetness in hardship. A dab of honey on the side, literally just for luck. You're told to eat from the same side of the plate without speaking. A silent vow of cooperation. You try. The bread is chewy. The apples are weirdly fizzy. You almost bite your spouse's spoon. People laugh. Someone yells, "If they can share a plate, they can share a life!" Polite applause. The final dish is brought out on a wooden board carried by 4 children in matching linen shirts. A cake made of porridge and honey, topped with gooseberries and walnuts. It's not delicious, but it's traditional. You each take one bite, then break the rest over each other's heads. Crumbs everywhere. Good luck for everyone. And now, finally, the mood begins to soften. The linen is tucked away. The song slow. The sky fades to lavender and ash. One by one, the guests drift off. Some stumbling. Some snoring. One man face down in a wheelbarrow. The village exhales. You are left sitting beside your spouse on a wooden bench that still smells faintly of salted fish. Neither of you speak. You don't need to. Because somehow you survived it. The feast. The songs. The sheet. The jokes. The endless metaphors about wheat and horses and firewood. The night. The morning. The entire ordeal. And now, for the first time, it's quiet. A candle flickers. A breeze carries the last echo of song through the trees. You exhale. For one moment, it's just you. And the silence. Before the next ritual begins. You'd think, after everything, after the sheet, the songs, the suspicious porridge cake, you'd finally get to disappear into your new life with some dignity and a clean face. But no. Because in Kievan Rus, nighttime doesn't promise rest. Nighttime promises the supernatural. And your wedding night wasn't just a social trial. It was also a spiritual minefield. As the stars prick the sky and the fires go down to glowing embers, your aunt finds you again. The same one who gave you garlic and a lard-anointed forehead. She pulls you aside and presses something small and heavy into your hand. It's a carved wooden charm in the shape of a crescent moon. Rough, worn, and clearly older than anyone at the feast. You must keep this under your pillow for the first 7 nights, she whispers. It protects you from the others. You nod because obviously. She doesn't elaborate. She doesn't need to. Because you already know. Or at least you've heard the stories. The spirits. The ones that don't like newlyweds. In the shadows of Kievan Rus folklore, wedged somewhere between Christian saints and ancient Slavic gods, lived a whole cast of unseen guests. Some were protectors. Most were not. There's the Rusalka, a restless female spirit drawn to new brides out of jealousy. Or maybe hunger. People still debate whether she blesses or curses. There's the NAV, the wandering dead who hate joy and love to whisper doubts into young lovers' ears while they sleep. There's the Domovo, the household spirit, who is technically on your side, but only if you offer proper respect. Forget to feed him a crumb or acknowledge his presence, and he might tangle your hair in your sleep or hide your cooking pots for days. And then there are the unnamed ones. The ones you don't talk about. But you still leave offerings for them. That's what you're doing now, apparently. You're led back to your house, your new home, with a small clay dish of bread soaked in honey and a pinch of salt. You are to place it by the stove, along with a sliver of bacon, to appease anything that might be lurking, watching, deciding whether your union deserves peace or chaos. You do it without question. You're too tired to question anything anymore. Historians still argue whether these nighttime rituals were actually believed, or whether they were just habits passed down for comfort, like bedtime prayers. But when you're standing barefoot in a creaky house with centuries of breathless brides behind you, it's not really the time for academic debates. You place the dish. You whisper a word of thanks. You back away. Never turn your back on the stove, they said. And then comes the pillow check. Someone, you suspect it was your mother-in-law, has placed 3 specific things under your mattress. A knife, blade inward. A strand of black horsehair. A dried wormwood sprig. Each has a purpose. The knife to cut away evil. The horsehair to bind the couple's strength. The wormwood, just in case. You lie down anyway. The house creaks. Outside, the wind picks up. The branches scratch the wooden walls in that specific, irregular way that suggests something else. You blow out the candle. And immediately regret it. You whisper to your spouse, "Do you think we're alone?" They respond, "Not even a little." You both laugh. Quietly. Then comes the scratching. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just the soft, rhythmic sound of something fingernail-size dragging across the floor. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe it's a mouse. Maybe it's something that used to be human. You both freeze. Then whisper a prayer. Then pretend you didn't hear it. A quirky tidbit from the folklore vault. In some households, newlyweds weren't allowed to sleep alone on their wedding night. Not because of virtue, but because of fear. A relative would stay in the room, not looking, but present, to deter spirits. In some variations, that person wasn't even alive. A token from a recently deceased ancestor, like a shawl or a cane, would be placed by the door to symbolize their protection. You consider grabbing the leftover spoon from your wedding meal and naming it your guardian. Eventually you sleep. Sort of. You drift in and out, startled by creaks, groans, and the occasional very unromantic noise from the rafters. You dream of women with seaweed hair, of hands reaching through the floor, of whispered arguments in a language you don't speak. When you wake, your spouse is already up, lighting the fire. You sit up slowly. Nothing is tangled. Nothing is bleeding. Nothing has vanished. So a success. Until you step outside. Because apparently, someone dreamed of you last night. And in Kievan Rus, dreams count. Your neighbor approaches as you're pouring water into a clay jug. She looks far too smug for this early in the morning. I had a dream, she says. You freeze. Smile. Nod. You were spinning thread, but it turned into snakes. Oh, you say. That means one of you has secrets. She walks away. You stare into your jug. Your spouse walks out with a hunk of bread in hand. What did I miss? Snakes, you say. They blink. Good snakes or bad snakes? You shrug. Because honestly, no one ever explains which is which. You eat in silence. Bread. Salt. Some pickled mushrooms someone left on the doorstep as a gift. You're not sure who. Or why. The chickens are clucking. The world is spinning again. But you survived the night. You survived the spirits, the scrutiny, the songs. And now? Now comes the part where you're expected to act like nothing ever happened. The third day of your marriage begins not with breakfast in bed or whispered I love yous, but with someone yelling about milk. More specifically, the cow won't let down, which, in the language of Kievan Rus, roughly translates to, your presence is causing livestock distress. Fix it. You step outside, barefoot, and immediately regret it. The morning dew is cold. The chickens are especially judgmental today. Your spouse follows, holding 2 uneven mugs of something that tastes vaguely of fermented oats and disappointment. You both sip. You both avoid eye contact with the cow. Welcome to married life. Today is supposed to be about resuming order, blending into the rhythm of the household, proving that the ritual chaos of the wedding hasn't broken you. It's a delicate balancing act. You must show that you're new and that you belong, that you're a fresh addition and a seamless fit. Which means working. A lot. Before you've even finished the mug, your mother-in-law appears like a summoned spirit. She hands you a broom, a dough bowl, and a list of things she says with her eyebrows. Your spouse is not spared either. They're sent to check the roof. You glance at each other like survivors of a shipwreck, now sentenced to build a new ship from scratch. By mid-morning, you're in the yard beating rugs, wondering if this counts as a honeymoon. Spoiler, it doesn't. Still, there's something oddly grounding about it. The wedding was noise, metaphor, ceremony. This is real. Dirt under your nails. Smoke in your hair. Scrubbing floors with a cloth that smells like ancient turnips. A neighbor stops by. She watches you work for a while, then smiles. You're doing well, she says. Some brides faint by now. You smile. Then immediately trip over a bucket. Progress. And just when you think things might settle, someone calls for you. It's time for the oaths. You forgot about the oaths. In your village, as in many parts of Kievan Rus, there was a post-wedding ritual in which the newlyweds were brought before a small gathering, elders, family members, and that one gossipy cousin who's always at the front of everything, to publicly declare their household promises. It's like a medieval version of writing your own vows, except instead of poetry, it's more like a verbal contract about grain, shoes, and how often you're allowed to visit your parents. You're seated on a bench. Your spouse stands beside you. A clay bowl is passed around, symbolically full of earth and salt, representing the weight and flavor of life. One elder speaks. Do you swear to feed the fire, sweep the threshold, mend the cloth, and tend to the beasts? You blink. That's a lot of sweeping. But you nod. Yes. Your spouse gets their own list. Do you swear to carry the burdens, guard the threshold, till the soil, and never bring home a guest with less than 2 teeth? That last one's a joke. Maybe. Yes, they say. Then you're handed a loaf of bread. You both break it together. The bigger piece, they say, determines who holds sway in the household. You get the larger half. Barely. Someone cheers. Someone boos. Someone throws a plum. And just like that, the oaths are sealed. But the rituals don't stop there. Next comes the salt circle. A ring of coarse salt is poured on the ground around your home, step by careful step, by a child walking backward. You are to walk it with your spouse, hand in hand, one full turn clockwise, to bind your steps together. If you stumble, bad omen. If you step outside the line, very bad omen. If you laugh, a rooster will die, apparently. You complete it without disaster, unless you count the slight hiccup when your spouse sneezes and nearly knocks over the child with the salt. The crowd gasps. The child apologizes to the wind. You finish the circle. A good sign. Probably. A quirky historical tidbit. In some regions, couples were not allowed to leave their home together for 3 days after the wedding. It was believed the spirits needed time to get used to the new energy. Violating this risked attracting misfortune, or, worse, the attention of the Lyco, a one-eyed embodiment of bad luck. You're not sure if your village follows that rule. You're too afraid to ask. You spend the afternoon tending to small tasks. Sorting flax. Cleaning fish. Watching your spouse fail hilariously at chopping wood. Everywhere you go, people watch. Not cruelly. Just curiously. You're a newlywed. A symbol. A story that's still being written. Every smile, every misstep, every stain on your sleeve is another line in the communal memory. And yes, people are already talking. You overhear someone say, "She swept well this morning." Another says, "He hasn't cursed yet." A good sign. Another mutters, "They didn't cry." That's rare. You're not sure if any of this means anything. But you nod politely, and you keep going. At dusk, a small table is set for you outside the house. Just for you two. A piece of bread. A bowl of milk. A single candle between you. It's not a feast. It's a gesture. The quiet after the storm. You eat in silence. Watching the last light fade from the sky. Listening to the frogs, the soft crunch of boots, the faint laughter in the distance. You made it through another day. No sheets. No songs. No metaphors. Just you. And the person beside you. And the 1,000 invisible eyes slowly blinking shut. For now. You're finally starting to think things have calmed down. That maybe, just maybe, the village has run out of traditions to drag you through. The oaths are made, the salt circle walked, the bedding judged, the cow milked. You've earned some peace, right? Wrong. Because now comes the worst one yet. The games. Not children's games. Not fun games. These are ritualized, public, absolutely mortifying party games designed to embarrass newlyweds into full community submission, with the excuse that it's all in good fun. You hear them setting up before you see them, the scraping of benches, the clatter of wooden spoons, someone blowing into a goat horn for no apparent reason. And the moment you step outside your door, someone shouts, "Time for the bride and groom trials!" You freeze. Your spouse tries to back up. Too late. You're both grabbed gently, but with undeniable force, by two laughing uncles and dragged into the village square, where a crowd is already forming. The drunker they are, the louder they cheer. At the center, there's a blanket spread on the ground with a wooden bowl in the middle. You have a sinking feeling. "Welcome!" shouts the master of games, usually the village fool or the person with the loudest voice. Today, it's a distant cousin in a fur hat 2 sizes too small. "To the festival of the married!" he bows dramatically. Everyone claps. Your fate is sealed. The first game is innocent enough, the spoon race. You and your spouse are each given a long wooden spoon with a raw egg balanced on top. You must walk a circle, barefoot, of course, without dropping it. Whoever finishes first is declared head of the hearth. You try. You focus. You wobble. Your spouse cheats immediately by using their thumb to steady the egg. You glare. They grin. The egg falls. It cracks. People cheer anyway. "Clearly," someone says, "they'll need to practice." The next game, guess the item. You are blindfolded. Objects are placed in your hands, one at a time, and you must name them using only touch. So far, so good. A piece of bread. A wooden comb. A horseshoe. Then someone hands you something slimy. You pause. Squeeze. Sniff. Pig's bladder? You guess. Wrong. It's a wedding jelly, a local dish made of animal parts no one admits to eating. Your spouse howls with laughter. Then it's their turn. They're handed a soft, lumpy object. They fumble for a while. Guess. Onion stuffed sock. It's your dowry pillow. The crowd dies laughing. Historians note that these public games served as a symbolic ritual of humiliation, designed to tear down ego and encourage humility. Because in a communal society like Kievan Rus, being teased was a form of acceptance. If they didn't tease you, they didn't trust you. Or worse, didn't care. You remind yourself of this as you're pulled into the next challenge, the question circle. You and your spouse are seated back to back while a quiz master, someone already 2 mugs deep into the mead, fires questions at you. Who snores louder? Who will change the diapers? Who's more stubborn? Who ate more pickles at the feast? Who said, "I love you," first? You answer honestly. Your spouse does not. People love it. Then come the mock ceremonies. They dress you both in absurd versions of your wedding clothes, your veil made from fishing net, your tunic swapped for a burlap sack. You're paraded around the square, while a group of children sings a nonsense song about goats, falling in love under the moon. One little girl hands you a baby, actually a wrapped turnip. "Congratulations," she says. You cradle it with the solemnity it deserves. A quirky historical tidbit. In some villages, a carved wooden doll or vegetable baby would be given to newlyweds to practice for parenthood. The doll was passed between them for a week, and if it was dropped, misplaced, or chewed on by the family dog, well, the omens weren't good. You hold your turnip carefully. Your spouse leans in. "Ours smells weird." You sniff it. Like prophecy. Then comes the final game, name the in-laws. You're blindfolded again and surrounded by relatives. Each one says a phrase, one word only. You must name them by voice alone. It's harder than you thought. Someone says, "Barley." You say, "Ancina." Wrong. It was your uncle. Someone whispers, "Sorrow." You guess, "Grandmother." Correct. She nods solemnly. Then someone whispers, "Taxes." You pause. "Father-in-law?" Silence. Then thunderous applause. You nailed it. The night is wearing on now. The air grows cooler. The torches flicker like tired eyes. Someone starts a final song, slower, softer. A farewell to the wedding days, a welcome to ordinary life. People hug you, clap your back, hand you small gifts, a loaf of bread, a ribbon, a woven pouch of herbs, a carved spoon. Tokens for luck. Blessings disguised as clutter. Your turnip baby is taken gently from your arms and placed in a basket beside another one. You hope they get along. You and your spouse stand together. Your feet are sore. Your face is hurt from smiling. Your clothes are stained. Your dignity? Shaky. But you're still standing. And in this place, in this time, that means you've passed. You've been teased. You've been judged. You've been turned into a joke and survived the punchline. And that, in Kievan Rus, is the closest thing to love anyone is going to say out loud. Morning again, but this time the air feels different. Cooler. Still. The games are over. The linen has been folded. The goats have stopped screaming. And finally, mercifully, the village seems to have bored itself out. But don't be fooled, what comes next isn't rest. It's judgment. Subtle. Unspoken. Quietly brutal. Because now, in this transition between celebration and real life, every movement you make is being weighed. Not by jesters or ants with riddles, but by watchers. The older women at the well. The men mending a fence with one eye on your doorway. The child sitting on the step with a basket of eggs and ears like a hawk. This is the power dynamic phase. The wedding may be over, but now your role in the family, and in the village, must be proven. And like everything in Kievan Rus, it's done through ritual, labor, and 1,000 little tests no one will admit are happening. First comes the morning meal test. You are told casually that it's your turn to prepare breakfast. No one helps. No one tells you where anything is. You fumble with the stove. Burn the porridge. Almost salt the milk instead of the eggs. But you get it done. Barely. They eat it. They nod. No compliments. But also, no corrections. That's a win. Then comes the spouse respect test. It's not about love. No one's asking whether you've bonded, or whether you feel connected. They want to see how you handle each other. You're sent to chop firewood together. Not because firewood is urgent, because someone wants to see how you divide the labor. Who picks up the axe? Who offers advice? Who rolls their eyes? Your spouse swings wildly and almost hits their foot. You step in, correct the grip, and take over. Someone watching mutters, "She's the man in this house." You pretend not to hear. Later you catch the same person chuckling and saying, "Good. She won't let him grow lazy." It's a tightrope walk. Then comes the quiet pressure. You are left alone in the house. No instructions. No chores. Nothing. But outside, you can feel the stillness. The ears. What will you do? Sit idle? Clean something? Visit the shrine? Take a walk? You choose to sweep. Again. It's safe. It's symbolic. It says, I am not a burden. Historians note that in early Rus culture, the concept of vesely dom, a harmonious house, was central. A well-run home was seen as a reflection of the woman inside it. If things were clean, quiet, orderly, the bride was praised. If anything went missing, broke, or smelled wrong, she was blamed. Not just by the household, but by the village. You think of that as you fold towels with military precision and hum a song you don't quite remember learning. Then comes the visitor phase. Your parents arrive. With gifts. And a look. You haven't seen them since the wedding. You barely said goodbye. They smile too brightly. They hug you. Then your mother takes your hands and whispers, "Are you well?" You nod. Then she presses something into your palm, a silver charm, shaped like a wheat sheaf. A blessing for plenty. But also protection. You slide it into your pocket. Your father speaks with your in-laws. They exchange compliments that sound like veiled insults. Then they exchange actual veiled insults. Then they drink. Your parents leave at sundown. Your mother kisses you too many times. Your father tells your spouse, "Take care of her." Your spouse nods. Always. You believe them. But now comes the family placement test. Your in-laws begin assigning roles. Your job is not guaranteed. Your title is not wife. That's just the umbrella. Now you find out where you really stand. Will you be cooking? Fetching water? Spinning flax? Watching the children? Making candles? Minding livestock? She's strong, says one aunt. Put her with the bees. She's delicate, says a neighbor. Give her the grain. She's clever, says the grandmother. Put her near the books. There are no books. You are quietly added to the spinning rota and the morning baking shift. Fine. Fair. Manageable. Then, after dinner, comes the final surprise. You are brought a key. Not symbolic. Real. Old iron. Cold. Heavy. It unlocks the storeroom, the heart of the household. You are handed the key without fanfare. Just a simple nod. And in Kievan Rus, that's a declaration of trust. In early Slavic law codes like the Ruskaya Pravda, a woman's role in the household gave her significant domestic authority, but only if earned. The key wasn't just for storage. It was a statement: she belongs here. Her word counts. You feel it in your palm. The weight. The chill. Your spouse smiles. Later that night, as you sit outside in silence, someone passes by and says, "You did well." You don't know what exactly they're referring to, but it feels good. And now, finally, after days of ritual, embarrassment, eggs, oaths, and endless metaphors, you are no longer just the bride. You are part of the system now. Congratulations. Or condolences. You wake up before the rooster. Not out of duty. Out of instinct. Something in you has already changed. You're up, wrapped in wool, quietly lighting the stove before the house even stirs. You move like a ghost, but one that knows exactly where the grain sack is now, and how long to wait before flipping the flatbread on the pan. Your spouse appears, bleary-eyed and barefoot, and smiles at you like they've never seen you before. You slept? You nod. Me too, they say. Mostly. You eat in silence, side by side, sharing a mug of warm milk and honey. And then, just when the morning seems like it might be normal, your cousin barrels through the door. They're talking, she says dramatically. You blink. Who? Everyone. Of course. Because this is the day of the reckoning. Not a trial. Not a punishment. Just a slow, quiet unraveling of everyone's opinions about your wedding, and especially your wedding night. It begins innocently enough. A neighbor greets you with a knowing smirk and says, "Still glowing, I see." Then a passing boy asks if you'll name your firstborn after him. Then a woman you barely know corners you and says, "They say the lamp didn't go out. That's very lucky. You must be blessed." You thank her. You move on. But it follows you. All day. Whispers behind water jugs. Stares over steaming cauldrons. Raised eyebrows during bread kneading. You overhear a group of older women discussing whether the sheets seemed natural. Someone else insists the groom's boots were too clean the next morning, suspiciously clean. Another woman claims she heard nothing at all through the wall and interprets that as deep spiritual harmony. Or possibly failure. Hard to tell. Historians call this phenomenon social memory building, the village's way of scripting your story for you, long before you can write it yourself. You try to stay busy. You spin flax. You sort dried herbs. You teach a younger girl how to sew a straight seam. But the glances keep coming. Your spouse has it easier. Kind of. They're mostly teased. Still alive, then? Did she run off yet? Any bruises? They laugh along. Shrug. Make jokes about not remembering a thing and waking up under a cow. You admire their strategy. Then comes the status check. In the late afternoon, your name is formally spoken at the shrine. The priest, or sometimes just the head woman, says your new joined name aloud during the lighting of the household icon lamp. It's a small thing, easy to miss, but it means everything. From now on, you're not just you. You're you and them. Tied. Named. A single thread in the village loom. And that comes with expectations. From this day forward, everything you do reflects not just on you, but on your joined household. If your bread is too flat, whispers. If your baby is sickly, suspicions. If your door squeaks in the wind, definitely haunted. You become public property. In the gentlest, most exhausting way. A quirky historical tidbit: some villages kept wedding records not on paper, but in song. A designated singer or elder would compose a verse for every couple, documenting their marriage in rhyme, often exaggerating events, or inserting little jokes, which were passed down for generations. If your verse was catchy, your marriage lived forever. You hear your verse for the first time that evening. A child sings it. It's not flattering. Something about bride with eyes like burnt onions, and a groom who sleeps like a rock. It rhymes. Everyone laughs. You force a smile. But it's done. You've entered folklore. Later that night, as you fetch water from the well, an older woman joins you. She says nothing for a long time. Just watches the bucket rise. Then, you kept your voice. That's rare. You glance at her. What do you mean? Most girls, by this point, either scream or go silent forever. You're still speaking in full sentences. That's something. She walks away before you can answer. You stay by the well a while. The moon is out. Bright. Round. Unapologetic. You look at your reflection in the water. Your hair is loose. Your hands are chapped. Your tunic is stained with flour. And yet, you feel taller. Not in stature. In shape. In soul. This village has squeezed you, tested you, sung about you, whispered around you. And you're still here. Still breathing. Still yourself. Mostly. You carry the water home. Inside, your spouse is snoring. Loudly. You place the bucket by the door. Blow out the lamp. And for the first time in days, you sleep without dreaming. Because tomorrow? Tomorrow you're no longer the bride. You're just one of them. And that, strangely enough, might be the most terrifying part. You wake up with the faintest sense of surprise. Nothing hurts. No one is yelling. The door hasn't opened to announce another ritual or surprise test. It's just quiet. The stove is warm from the coals you banked last night. A chicken clucks somewhere in the distance, not out of spite, but routine. Your spouse is already up, muttering something about kindling and their missing left boot. It's a normal day. And that's when it hits you. The wedding is truly over. No more teasing songs. No more accidental advice from neighbors. No more linen inspections, egg games, or ceremonial broom assignments. What comes next is not spectacle. It's everything else. Ordinary life. You step outside and stretch. The sun's up, not too high, not too hot. You feel it on your skin and realize you're not being watched anymore. Not obviously, anyway. It's a strange shift, from spectacle to shadow. From the center of the fire to someone who just tends it now. You feel smaller, but also steadier. And yet, as you begin your daily chores, grinding grain, checking the root cellar, peeling something that might once have been a turnip, you notice a new feeling. Not fear. Not pressure. Ownership. This life? It's yours now. Or at least partially. You know where the knives are, where the soap root is stored, how to open the shed without losing a toe, when to speak, when to nod, when to smile just enough. And even though the rituals are over, you know the judgments will still come. But now they'll be quieter, slower, layered in years, not days. Your marriage isn't just a ceremony anymore. It's a season, a cycle, and your role in it keeps unfolding. Later that day, you and your spouse walk together to the edge of the village. There's no reason. You just do. The trees whisper. The wind smells like pine tar and wet earth. Your spouse says, "Do you think it gets easier?" You pause. "No. But I think we get stronger." They nod. "You're stronger than me." "Obviously," you say. You walk further, and someone calls your name from behind. Not bride. Not daughter. Just your name, attached now to this place, this person, this thread in the village web. A quirky historical tidbit. In some Kievan Rus villages, married couples were given new symbolic names by their community. Not officially, but through jokes, songs, or nicknames that stuck. Names like Firekeeper, Half of Bread, Storm in a Sack, or Wife of the Fishman. You've already overheard a few nicknames. Some kind. Some weird. One involving a beetle. But none mean you're forgotten. You're being woven into the village story. A permanent part of the cloth. You return home. It's not fancy. The walls still creak. The hearth still smokes. But you know this place now. And it knows you. You tuck dried herbs into the rafters. You tie a charm on the doorpost. You rub a speck of salt into the corner of the room where the shadows like to gather. Just in case. Because even when the drama fades, the old magic never quite does. You sleep that night with both eyes closed. The domovin makes no noise. The lamp doesn't flicker. Even the turnip you once cradled as a ceremonial baby has finally been sliced and stewed. It was surprisingly tasty. You're no longer a symbol. Not a bride. Not a mystery. You're simply a person. Living. And in this world, that's the most sacred thing of all. Now the songs have faded. The feasts have ended. The jokes have quieted to a memory that occasionally ripples through the air like the scent of old bread. The linen has been folded away, tucked in a chest beneath dried lavender, and promises whispered in half-sleep. The key hangs by the doorway now, not just to the storeroom, but to everything you've slowly, nervously, stubbornly made your own. Your name, once whispered in curiosity, is spoken now in passing. Casually. Comfortably. As if it's always belonged here. The hearth is warm. The house no longer feels borrowed. Even the floor knows your steps. And outside, the trees rustle not in warning, but in rhythm. There are still tasks to do, always. Bread to bake. Water to fetch. Neighbors to dodge. But they no longer feel like trials. They feel like the shape of your days, unfolding gently. Your spouse snores in the corner. A chicken shuffles in its sleep. Somewhere, a pot cools beside the ashes. You sit in the doorway, watching the stars, the night wrapping itself around your shoulders like a shawl that smells faintly of smoke and something sweet. You've survived. Not just the wedding. Not just the judgment. But the becoming. And as the fire flickers lower, and the wind hums its old, sleepy song, you let go. You rest. You breathe. Because the story is still being written, but for tonight, this page is finished. Sweet dreams.